Alright guys, as we come back and get back into the swing of things, the first game I'm going to tackle off of my backlog is Shinobi Art of Vengeance. Let's get into it. Alright guys, as you can tell by the title, we are going to be tackling my backlog. You know, like I said, I took a 3.5-year hiatus, just really concentrating on other things. I posted a channel update video, so if you haven't checked that out, that video was the last video that I posted, so go watch that before you dive into this review. But without further ado, let's go ahead and tackle some of this backlog that I have. I have so many games I want to get through. The first one we're going to be starting off with is Shinobi Art of Vengeance. Alright guys, so if you don't know, on this channel, if you're new here, I love Sega. Sega is one of my favorite gaming companies, one of my favorite gaming developers, publishers, whatever you want to call them. Sega has always been one of the quintessential companies when it comes to my gaming experience. My very first console was the Sega Genesis. I grew up playing a lot of the Sega franchises, whether it's Sonic the Hedgehog, Knights, Streets of Rage, Shinobi, Jet Grind Radio, Crazy Taxi, the list goes on and on. So, of course, now Sega is in this whole, like, reimagining phase, right? So right now they're taking a lot of their popular IPs from back in the 90s and 2000s and are essentially reintroducing them to a new generation of gamers. We kind of saw this with Streets of Rage 4. You know, that got a lot of crazy, great reviews. I love Streets of Rage 4. It's one of my favorite games that came out in the last couple years. But now they're doing the same treatment with the Shinobi series. So, is this game worth your time? Was it worth me tackling on my backlog? And I'm just here to share my thoughts on it. So without further ado, yo, let's get into it. All right, so playing Shinobi, I remember Shinobi back in the day on the Sega Genesis. I remember my cousin, who I talked about on this channel a couple times. He was one of the quintessential people in my life that really introduced me to a lot of franchises. And one of the franchises that he was really into back in the day was Shinobi. I remember watching him play Shinobi. I believe it was on the Genesis or maybe one of the later games. But I just remember Shinobi being like really, really difficult. So when I heard Sega was bringing this back, because, you know, around the time, you know, there's a resurgence when it comes to ninja games. You know, you have Ninja Gaiden making a resurgence on the modern and retro side of things. You have games like Ghost of Tsushima, Onimusha. So there is not a lack of ninja / samurai games on the market now, and Shinobi Art of Vengeance was just another one that was thrown in, but it was by Sega. I'm a huge Sega fan, and it was, you know, pretty much a resurgence of that franchise. So of course, when the game came out and I played the demo, which I did you know, impressions on the channel, I was really intrigued. The gameplay was fluid, the controls were great. It kind of had like a Metroidvania feel to it. So when the full game finally released, I bought it day one, but then school happened. I got super busy and just never really got a chance to play it. So it's been kind of sitting in my library since it came out. But now that I'm done with school and everything, I've been spending the last week or two playing it, really getting involved with it, and really loving it. So I just want to come on and just talk about it real quick. So yeah. All right, story-wise, right, this story is super simple. You know, Joe Musashi, our main protagonist, he's a man of very few words, literally. So he doesn't really talk much throughout the game. But essentially, the story goes like this. You know, you start off the game like in a village, and the EME company, they pretty much go through and just ransack and destroy Joe Musashi's village and, you know, his students and whatnot. So it's really just an attempt for Joe to get revenge and go and just defeat the bosses and whoever runs the corporation to get vengeance for his students, his wife, etc., etc. So you follow Joe through all these different type of levels, just getting revenge on the corporation, yo. So it's really just a very simple plot, but really the star of the show here is the gameplay. So let me jump into what I love about this game, because I don't really have anything negative to say, so I'm just gonna say all positives here. Number one, let's start with the art direction and the vibe of the game. This game is beautiful. This is one of the most beautiful, most vibrant 2D games that I've ever seen on a modern platform. I just love the art style they decided to go with it. It's kind of like this hand-drawn, Japanese art-inspired type of vibe they got going on here. I just love how this game looks. The animation is super fluid. You know, the backgrounds are lush and colorful and vibrant. It's just a beautiful game through and through. Like, there were just plenty of times, like, throughout the game, I was just playing it and just awe at the background, yo. Like, the neon city, the mini game levels, just the way how everything flows and looks, and it's just an amazing looking game. So as far as like visuals and graphics, this game gets a 10 out of 10 for me. I just absolutely love how this game looks, the character models, just the whole art direction. So Sega did an amazing job with this, so shout out to them for that. Now let's get into the gameplay. Now this is where the game really shines for me. Number one, the gameplay is super fluid, right? Right from the start, you could pull off so many stylish combos. It's almost like playing like a Devil May Cry Bayonetta in 2D. I don't remember Shinobi, the OG version of the game, and I may do a retro review on that just out of curiosity, but I don't remember the OG game controlling this well. And I know a lot of people say this game is kind of like a direct sequel to Shinobi 3, so maybe that game controls a little bit closer to this. But man, right from the jump, you're pulling off all kinds of different combos and combinations and be able to juggle enemies and switching, seamlessly between your katana and your projectile items, and you have different things that you can do to kind of combo your enemies in a very stylish way, and I love that aspect of it. Later in the game, you do find, different enemy varieties. You have to kind of figure out how to defeat them. You have some enemies that have armor, you have some enemies that have like, elemental buffs. There's different things that they kind of throw at you, so you kind of got to come up with a strategy to kind of defeat them all. But for the most part, I just love the combo system and the combat system in this game. It is super fluid. I was able to do so many stylish moves very quickly. The controls are just flawless. I didn't feel any lag. Everything controlled beautifully. It was just great. So from the combat standpoint, again, 10 out of 10. And then of course, as you progress through the game, because there is like kind of like a Metroidvania style here, as you progress through the game and do your backtracking and things, you start to unlock more moves. You have special abilities like where you can throw like a giant axe, or you can do like a flamethrower, or you can what's the word I'm looking for? You can like parry an enemy with your water attacks. You have so many different moves and variations that you could try, and if you go into the menu, you can kind of see like the different options that you have for Joe. You can kind of customize them to your play style. So there's a lot of combat variety here. And I loved it. Now as far as the platforming section, because this game, like I said, is kind of built like a Metroidvania with the backtracking, but it's still pretty linear. The game still kind of pushes you in one direction when it comes to the main story. Like I said, Joe controls beautifully. You have things like your air dash, you can jump on walls, and then later in the game, you get kind of like a ground pound, and you get like claws and a grappling hook. So there's so many ways that you can kind of explore the areas that you go through as Joe, and I absolutely love that. And that's one of the many things that I love about this game, is that it's just very fun to explore, very fun to play. Like I said, the controls are very fluid. So if you like games like Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, Ninja Gaiden, games with very fluid combat, you're gonna feel right at home with this game right here. Another thing I want to touch on is the music. The music, again, this is Sega, so the music is always going to be on point. So I didn't have any complaints. I love the music for every single level of this game. I wish I could pick out a favorite, but the music here is just great. So the soundtrack, you're gonna have a great time listening to all the tracks they put throughout every different level. So every level has like a different type of theme, but like I said, the music here is great as well. So props to the composers here. Good stuff. The next thing I want to touch on are the boss fights. Now, the boss fights are one that I love as well. I'm going to talk about the Sega DLC, later in the video, but for the main story, the boss fights are extremely fun. I'm not going to put too many boss fights on screen because I know some of you guys still want to play this, and some of you guys haven't gotten to it, so I don't want to spoil too many of the fights. But the boss fights are very challenging, which I love, because I hate games that make the level super easy, but the bosses, you just like, what was that? I found the bosses to be very unique, very challenging, and it definitely puts your techniques that you learn throughout the game to test. So definitely love the boss fights here, and it's one of the highlights of the game for me. And, of course, after you complete the game, there's a boss rush that you can do. So if you want to check out all the bosses back to back to back to back, definitely check out the boss rush mode. It is pretty fun with that. That's pretty much it for the main game, y'all. Like I said, I popped this in. I didn't really know what to expect. I played the demo, like I said, but playing the full game, I had a hard time putting this game down. It was definitely worth the time and the money to play this game. So if you, like I said, if you like very stylish, fast-paced action hack and slash games, but don't mind the 2D aspect and nature of it, this game to me was a 10 out of 10. This is definitely one of my favorite games that I have played coming back to gaming, and I definitely recommend it, especially if you love, anything with ninjas, or like I said, just hack and slash, stylish games, Metroidvanias. Yeah, go check this game out, yo. This game is definitely worth the money. All right, before I get out of here, I want to take some time to talk about the DLC that they dropped for this. It's called the Sega Bosses DLC. Now, what I love about this, and I love when any company does this, is when they take, whether it's their IP or they're doing a collaboration with another company, I love the cross-marketing aspect of it. So in this case, Sega has taken 3 of their iconic bosses from different franchises. So here we have Golden Axe, Yakuza, and Sonic the Hedgehog. Representing the Golden Axe side, you have Mad Hatter, which I'm not really familiar with Golden Axe. I played a little bit of it as a kid, but I never got really far in it. So I wasn't really familiar with the Mad Hatter, but that boss gave me a run for my money. On the Yakuza side, you got my man Goro Majima. Shout out to my boy Majima, crazy as ever. And on the Sonic side, you have Dr. Eggman or Dr. Robotnik, depending on who you ask. So these boss fights are incredibly fun, and I actually think, honestly, these are some of the most difficult boss fights in the entire game. So I definitely recommend that you tackle these posts. I mean, you really can't even access these bosses until you get to a certain point in the game anyway. But I do recommend that you do like all the extra stuff in the story before you try to tackle these bosses, because these bosses will definitely give you a run for your money. I think with the Mad Hatter, out of all 3, I know the popular opinion is that Majima is the hardest one. I don't think so. Majima to me was the most fun out of all of the bosses, right? But I had the hardest time with Mad Hatter. I don't know what it is. Like, his attacks just hit so hard. Like, you're done in like 3 hits. So you gotta be really careful. You gotta just memorize his moveset and just dodge as much as you can and just have that healing on point, because yo, that boss was ridiculous. Majima, he was really fun. I had the most fun with him. Like, I was genuinely smiling while fighting him during my boss fight. So I love that boss fight. And the Eggman boss was really unique. So that boss fight kind of starts off like traditional, like you would in Sonic the Hedgehog. You know, he has like his different gadgets and whatnot. But the second phase of the boss fight is really where it ramps up, and I had a fun time with that as well. So if you do get this game, make sure you get the accompanying DLC to go with it, the Sega Bosses DLC. If you are a Sega fan or just a fan of just challenging boss fights in general, you're gonna love that as well. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, that is it. That is I guess episode 1 of me tackling my backlog with Shinobi Art of Vengeance. So let me know down in the comments if you played this game, if you have plans on playing it, and if you played it, let's have a discussion in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about it, and yeah, guys, I'll see y'all guys next video. All right, peace.